Hey everybody, it's Ken Drab from RickTheStick.com and the Webcomic Alliance. I'm doing a little video tutorial for you on the basics of how to do a logo. Basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to use some of the basics that are free to you on the web, such as clip art and some free fonts. I'm on a Macintosh and I'm running with Adobe Illustrator CS5, but I also use Photoshop CS5 as well. Taking a look at what we're going to start with, I had done a couple articles featuring two tails tales. Basically, it's about the idea of a dog who has two tails, and we listen to some of his tales. So I started with a dog I had done a while back, and I never gave him a name, but there he is. This is my dog. This is something that I created, so I'm comfortable with using this image. But there's plenty of royalty-free artwork out there that you can do. And since we're predominantly web cartoonists and comic artists on our own, it's a good idea to kind of use your own artwork and get familiar with using that. So what I've done here is I've got my old dog here, and what I've done is I've gone ahead and made him with two tails. Pretty simple stuff, no brain surgery there. So we've got our little doggy with two tails. Let's call him Antoine. Okay. So Antoine the dog with two tails. And then what we want to do is we want to come up with a style that will match the drawing style of either the comic or the children's book or whatever you want to use. It could even be for a product. So basically what I've done is I have set up the type already, okay, and I've got two different sizes. One is because I'm going to want to have the domain on here, and one is for the actual font. Now I know in advance what I've used and everything, so I'm just going to keep in the interest of keeping this video short, I'm just going to get ahead and type in the font. Now, actually, let me do this. With Illustrator, there's a couple things that are cool features. You can, let's say you have a ton of fonts like I do, okay? You can see that I've got tons and tons and tons of fonts collecting them over years, tons of free fonts, and just using them. I shouldn't have them all open yet, but I haven't taken the time in FontBook to go ahead and kind of close some of these out. So applications take a little longer to load than they should. That's something to consider too. So anyway, in Illustrator, I have this. It just shows you the font list if you click on the drop down from the top. Now, if I were to click on the word character, and look at it, it would still show me another drop down. But when I do that, when I click on the drop down, it shows me what the font would actually look like. This is great for when you're trying to preview in your head what the type of feel and font that you want to have. Now I used Slacky for this, which is a free font, and it's available to you on Google Fonts. And the way you get to that is you go to Google, and you can do just / web fonts, no space, Fins fonts, and it's a great new tool that Google has offered. These fonts are free, open source fonts, and they keep improving the layout. This is new to me. So you just go in here, and you can see they've got it all laid out for you. You can use preview text. So let's say two tails, and you can kind of preview and see again, the different types of fonts. Now, what I've got here is all categories, so it's going to show me all the fonts, but I may want to take some of these out. Like I know that I'm not going to want a sans serif, which is sans serif fonts are your Times, your Gaudi, Garamond, Georgia, those type of fonts. And without getting too into it, those are the fonts that I've actually talked about in one of the articles on the Alliance, available to you if you really want to get into that. But I'm not going to use the serif font either, so I'm going to use either display or handwriting just to take a look at. So as you can see, these are kind of cool. Now this one here, Love You Like a Sister, This is actually kind of new, and is would be a great font to have for this type of thing. And then scrolling down, you can see there's also these are the display fonts as well, so they're a little thicker. Two Tails there is called Bangers. Looks an awful lot like a Blambot font that's available as well. So now I'll get into why this is important in a second. So I'm scrolling down, and I'm just basically trying to scroll down to hopefully I get to the one that I actually used. Irish Grover would be another good one. Oh, I like that Cherry Cream Soda is a very cool font for something like this. Cabin Sketch is a font that I use on my website for my headers, which is great. Luckiest Guy would be a great one. Permanent Marker would be great. But the one I ultimately ended up on, and hopefully there it is, Two Tails, which is looks great in Slacky. So I've downloaded this font. It's free. You can contribute to the author of the font, which I highly suggest if you can afford it. So we've got Slacky, and basically what I've done is I've implemented that into the design. Now, why that's important is because let's say I create a website for Two Tails, and traditionally I wouldn't do this, but you could theoretically, for consistency's sake, is use Slacky now using Google Web Fonts on your website. So now you've used a font that is available to you and millions of other people, but it gives you the flexibility to for that consistency. So let's say I used a secondary font in the logo, and I will for the domain. If it were available on Google Web Fonts, it would be a great font to carry over into the website. And I do that on my own site as well with the Architect's Daughter is the secondary font that I use. It gives it kind of a great handwriting look, and so it goes along well with the Cabin Sketch that I use for the header. Okay, so there you are. Slacky, Google Web Fonts, google.com/web fonts. All right, enough of Google, enough of that stuff. Let's get into the logo. So what I've done is I've kind of just created a basic Two Tails. It's the font is consistent, and I've made it large enough so that it stands out. It's a good size compared to the dog, and that brings up one of the things that I wanted to talk about, or wanted to highlight here, and that's balance. If I were to have, and I'm just going to copy this, drop it onto a new layer, and I were to have it on one line or two lines, and drop it in here and bring it down so it fits on the canvas here. That's great, but how am I going to use that in my layouts, especially on my website? So you have to think about balance. So what I've done here is I could use this on my website like this. It's on one side, balancing off the dog on the other side. There's also a contrasting balance here too, where the font is dark and solid, and the dog is white and outlined. So there's two there, two different aspects. So I've used red for the tongue, and it's just a basic black and white logo. One of the things that concerns me for legibility and clarity's sake is that the Two Tails is kind of a tongue twister, but it doesn't really, I don't think the tails stands out. So what I'd like to do is just simply make the word tails a different color, and it complements the red. Now I could go ahead and make his tongue the same color so that it's very consistent. And he's got a little dog collar there, and I can make the red in his tongue there. So now I have that, and it's balanced very well. there's a little bit of black and red in both logos, and the logo and the text. Okay, and then I'm going to go down, and I know what font I want for this, and that's going to be Trash Hand, which is another free font available from one of the other websites, but would not work on your website like it would with Google Web Fonts. But I like this font, and it's what I've used before, so I'm familiar with it, and I like it. So again, now if you look at that horizontal logo layout there, you can see it kind of it's hard to read. It could look like two tail stales, or two ales tails. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to do the same treatment. Two tails tails. Now there's a lot of clarity. It's legible. You can understand, and that's one of the things you want to be careful with your fonts. If you're using these funky fonts and different things, you want to make sure it's legible. Now, the easiest way to do that is to reduce it down. Now, if you can still read two tails tails, it may be too small on the video, but on my monitor, it's legible. This is at 50%. So it's important that, and I'm mainly talking about the domain here, but because obviously you can see two tails tails is nice and large. But it's a good balance, and that's what you want to look for. Balance, colors, legibility, and clarity are some of the things that you want to look for, keeping your logos nice and clean and usable. Now, this would be great to use in banners and things like that. You can see, and here's an example of where a creative font can kind of go wrong, and that's really hard to read. Maybe and it doesn't really mesh with the balance of the logo. And this is one of the things that I talk about in one of the articles too. You can find on the website. All right. So if you have any great questions or any questions, they're all great. I'm sure, because you're watching this video. You're a great person. Okay. I'm not trying to pander or anything. I can tell by the quality of viewer you are that you're a great person. Kidding aside, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. On the webpage here, or over at Webcomic Alliance, or hit me up on Twitter at rickthestick.com, or at rickthestick, or you can reach me on Google Plus at Ken Drab. I'm Ken Drab from rickthestick.com and the Webcomic Alliance. Hopefully I'll catch you back here with some more videos if this isn't as big a disaster as I hoped it wouldn't be. All right. Thanks a lot for your time, and I appreciate it, and I'll see you around. Thanks. Bye.